Welcome to the Aboriginal channel. This episode will be part 2 to the products of Spain's repopulation efforts. In the previous video, we discovered that in the past, from 1929 to 1936, there was a Mexican repatriation, which was a mass deportation of Mexicans and Mexican Americans from the United States between 1929 and 1930. Estimates on how many were repatriated range from 400,000 to 2 million. Now, they'll tell you that that was a repatriation and a mass deportation. But what I'm telling you right here, it was a repopulation effort on the behalf of European colonization. If we look on this map from where they deported these Mexicans from, you'll see that the territory that they came from is the New Spain area, which is basically right here in red. See a little Florida and then basically all of the western part of the continent. If we look closely on this map right here, we see a little red dot right here on the west coast of Canada below Alaska, where Nocta Sound is at in Santa Cruz. So we learned that the Spanish left there in the late 1700s and started repositioning themselves along the west coast of the North American continent. Then they began to go in and fight the indigenous people all over here. And just like we've been dished out these false narratives about these so-called wars and who were actually fighting in them, the same thing, it goes for down in Mexico area. They have a so-called revolution where it was Europeans fighting Indians. And these Europeans, these Spain, militarized some of these Eskimos up here and brought them down. But I'm going to go into books and show how what I'm saying is exactly how it happened. Because when we go into books, we're going to see that the Eskimos were not down in this area in North America for a particular reason, and how they were not in California until the 1800s, until those massacres began to occur. And there may have been a few at the missions, but I won't count those. I'm going to say that they came down after those massacres began to occur in the 1830s when Germany built the revolver, so that Europeans that had teamed up, France, all these people had teamed up, had all these revolvers, these 6-shooters, and these Indians didn't have them. That's a key factor. That's why on the list of Indian massacres, the first massacre in California basically was in 1837. That is also why in 1838 the so-called Trail of Tears took place, because Europeans had 6-shooters. Up until that point, Indians was giving them hell the whole time. Believe that. But we're going to go over here to the book America from 1671. So we're going to go into where he's talking about California. It says, as for the island itself, it is at present little, if at all, inhabited by the Spaniards, whether it be that they want men to furnish new plantations, or that they find no matter of invitation and encouragement from the country, or perhaps that the access there be not so easy, for 'tis reported to be wonderfully well populated by the natives, and that there were found upon the coast and along the shore of Mar Vermiglio 20 or 23 nations, all of different languages, though from the particular narrations that have been made of the voyages of several eminent persons into these parts, it appears that the Spaniards have taken great pains in the discovery thereof, and also from the several Spanish names of places, that they have had plantations here formerly, however neglected at present. And this was in 1671 when the book came out. But it goes on to say that the last we hear, and this was in 1642, the last we hear of that it worthwhile to go and undertaking to these coasts, and ever since all undertaking here have been so wholly laid aside, that whatever was once discovered in these parts seems rather to be lost and forgotten than any way improved. So basically, California was invaded by the Spanish, militarized Mexican Canadians, and other Europeans in the 1800s. So right here, I brought up the Yakima War. It's from 1855 to 1858, the same exact years that the last Seminole Wars took place. That would mean a bunch of Indians were fighting the United States up here during those years, and also down here in Florida during the same years. Then you also had these other wars, the Sioux War, the First Sioux War, the Dakota War, the Colorado War, which were all between the United States Army and several Native American tribes, which were attacking American settlements in the Eastern Plains. And that was in 1863 during the Civil War, the so-called Civil War. But when you go back up and look at the Yakima War, which took place basically in Washington and Oregon, says that the belligerents So the people involved were the Yakima warriors, Walla Walla warriors, Umatilla warriors, Nasquilla warriors, and Cayuse warriors. So a bunch of warriors fighting in between 1855 and 1858. And that's the reason why when they were being brought down, they did not settle over in these parts because there were battles still going on here. After the 1858 and 1859, Oregon became a state. So they were trickling them down here. You had major massacres of Indians in California before and after 1858. So that's why you see a congestion of Mexican Eskimos all up and through here, or Mexican Canadians. But the one last question to be answered is could Eskimos have came down and mixed in with the Indians before the Spanish, or any time without the Spanish's involvement? And for that, I have to go into another book called An Inquiry into the Aboriginal Race of America by Sam Morton, 1844. And in the book, it says the traveler Hearn, while in company with a tribe of northern Indians, mentions a circumstance which is at least curious because it shows the light in which the Eskimo are regarded by their proximate neighbors on the south. He was the unwilling witness of a premeditated and unprovoked massacre of an entire encampment of Eskimo men, women, and children. And it is curious to remark that the aggressors apologized for their cruelty not only on the plea of an ancient feud, but by asserting that their unoffending victims were a people of different nature and origin from themselves, even in respect to sexual conformation. So basically, the Eskimos had an ancient feud with the Indians, which would rule out them being able to come down and mix in with the Indians in North America. One other thing must be pointed out is the fact that Siberian Asians are polarized. Then when you brought them down to the areas of America, the features become unexaggerated or not so exaggerated as the polarization. Through the history books, which has all been a lie. So therefore, if it's a lie, then what's the truth? If it's a lie, then what's the truth?